My name is Margot. I'm 47 years old, and I've spent most of my life trying to prove I belonged in a world that told me I didn't. Growing up in Chicago, Illinois, in the affluent Lincoln Park neighborhood, I was surrounded by success and ambition. My father, Robert Chen, was a self-made entrepreneur who built a chain of luxury car dealerships across the Midwest. He was the kind of man who believed in hard work, discipline, and the idea that business was a man's domain. My mother, Susan, was a stay-at-home mom who dedicated herself to managing our household and supporting my father's career. She was loving and warm, but she had absorbed my father's traditional views about gender roles. She encouraged me to focus on finding a good husband, to pursue appropriate careers like teaching or nursing, to be supportive rather than ambitious. I had two older brothers, Michael and James, who were groomed from childhood to join the family business. They spent their summers working at the dealerships, learning about inventory management, sales tactics, and customer relations. I, on the other hand, was sent to etiquette classes and piano lessons. When I expressed interest in the business, my father would pat my head and tell me not to worry about such complicated things. But I was fascinated by what my father did. I loved hearing about negotiations, marketing strategies, and expansion plans. I would sneak into his home office and read through his business magazines and reports. By the time I was 14, I had memorized the financial sections of every major newspaper and could discuss market trends with startling accuracy. One evening during dinner, when I was 16, my father was discussing a problem with one of his dealerships. Sales were down, and he couldn't figure out why. I had been listening quietly, and suddenly, I couldn't help myself. "Dad, have you considered that your target demographic has shifted? The area around that dealership has gotten younger in the past 5 years. Maybe you need to adjust your inventory to include more affordable, fuel-efficient models instead of just luxury vehicles." The table went silent. My brothers stared at me. My mother looked uncomfortable. My father set down his fork and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Margot, that's a cute observation," he said slowly. "But you don't know business. These decisions are far more complex than you understand. Stick to your schoolwork." His dismissal stung, but what hurt more was that 3 months later, he implemented exactly what I had suggested, and sales at that location increased by 30%. He never acknowledged that the idea had come from me. My brothers got credit for turning the location around. That pattern repeated itself throughout my teenage years. I would offer insights, they would be dismissed, and then later, I would see my ideas implemented without recognition. It became clear to me that in my father's eyes, I would never be taken seriously in the business world. When it came time for college, I wanted to study business administration at Northwestern University. My father refused to pay for it. "I'm not wasting money on a business degree for you," he said firmly. "You'll get married in a few years anyway. Study something practical, like education or communications, something you can fall back on if you need to work part-time." We fought about it for weeks. Finally, my mother pulled me aside and suggested a compromise. "Study marketing," she said softly. "It's creative, it's less confrontational than business, and your father might accept it. You can still learn what you want to learn." So I majored in marketing at DePaul University, working 2 part-time jobs to help pay for it, because my father's financial support came with strings attached. I excelled in my classes, graduating summa cum laude. I loved understanding consumer behavior, brand positioning, and the psychology behind purchasing decisions. After graduation, I applied to work at my father's company. I thought that with my degree and my knowledge of the business, he might finally give me a chance. Instead, he hired me as a receptionist. "You need to learn the business from the ground up," he said. "Answer phones, greet customers, and maybe in a few years, we'll see about moving you into something more substantial." Meanwhile, my brothers, who had barely graduated with mediocre grades, were given management positions immediately. I watched as they made decisions I knew were wrong, as they implemented strategies that were outdated. But whenever I tried to speak up, I was told the same thing: "You don't know business." I lasted 8 months before I quit. The final straw came during a staff meeting when I presented a comprehensive digital marketing strategy. This was 2003, and online presence was becoming crucial. I had spent weeks researching and preparing a presentation on how we could reach younger customers through targeted online advertising and social media. My father listened for about 5 minutes before cutting me off. "Margot, we sell cars, not computer games. Our customers want personal service, not websites. This internet fad isn't going to change how real business is done. You clearly don't understand our market." He assigned the project to James instead, who had no interest in it and never followed through. Within 2 years, our competitors who had embraced digital marketing were outpacing us significantly. But by then, I was long gone. Leaving my father's company was both liberating and terrifying. I was 23 years old, living in a small studio apartment in Wicker Park, and trying to figure out what to do with my life. I felt like a failure. My father's words echoed in my head constantly. "You don't know business." I took a job at a small marketing firm, starting as a junior account coordinator. The pay was barely enough to cover my rent and groceries, but I was determined to prove myself. I worked harder than anyone else, staying late, taking on extra projects, learning everything I could. My boss at the time was a woman named Patricia Goldstein, a sharp, no-nonsense entrepreneur in her 50s who had built her agency from nothing. She saw something in me that my father never had. "You have good instincts, Margot," she told me one evening as we worked late on a campaign pitch. "You see things other people miss. Don't let anyone convince you that you don't belong in this industry." Over the next 5 years, I climbed the ranks at the agency. I became a senior strategist, then an account director. I developed campaigns for major clients, won industry awards, and built a reputation as someone who could transform struggling brands. But I always felt like I was working twice as hard as my male colleagues to get half the recognition. When I was 29, I met Daniel. He was an architect, creative and thoughtful, with kind eyes and a gentle sense of humor. We met at a gallery opening in the West Loop, bonding over our shared love of contemporary art and deep dish pizza. He was the first man I dated who genuinely supported my ambitions, who never made me feel like my career was something I should apologize for. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony at the Chicago Botanic Garden. My father attended, but spent most of the reception talking business with other guests. He never asked about my work, never acknowledged my success at the agency. To him, I was still the daughter who didn't understand business, who had wasted her potential by not following his path. Daniel and I were happy. We bought a small townhouse in Logan Square, adopted a dog named Charlie, and built a life together. He encouraged me when I talked about my dreams of starting my own agency someday. "You should do it, Margot," he would say. "You're brilliant. You could build something amazing." But I was afraid. The voice in my head, the one that sounded like my father, kept telling me I wasn't ready, that I didn't know enough, that I would fail. Everything changed when I turned 34. Patricia called me into her office one morning, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. Her usually confident demeanor was subdued, her eyes red-rimmed. "I'm selling the agency," she said quietly. "I've been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. I need to step back while I still can." I was devastated. Patricia had been my mentor, my advocate, my proof that women could succeed in this industry. The agency was being acquired by a larger firm, and the new management made it clear that they were bringing in their own leadership team. Within 3 months, my position was eliminated. At 34, I found myself unemployed, uncertain, and facing the biggest decision of my life. Daniel and I sat at our kitchen table one cold November evening, drinking tea and talking about the future. Charlie was asleep at our feet, snoring softly. "This might be your chance," Daniel said gently. "You've been talking about starting your own agency for years. Maybe this is the universe telling you it's time." "What if I fail?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at me. What if my father was right? What if I really don't know business well enough to make it on my own? Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. "Margot, you are one of the smartest, most capable people I know. Your father was wrong. He's been wrong about you your entire life. The only way you'll fail is if you don't try." His words gave me courage. I spent the next 2 months developing a business plan. I would start a boutique marketing agency focused on helping small and medium-sized businesses build their brands through integrated digital and traditional strategies. I had seen a gap in the market. Larger agencies didn't want to bother with smaller clients, and smaller firms often lacked the strategic sophistication those businesses needed. I named it Meridian Strategy Group. I cashed out my retirement savings, took out a small business loan, and rented a tiny office space above a coffee shop in Pilsen. It was just me at first, working 18-hour days, doing everything from strategy to graphic design to bookkeeping. The first year was brutal. I lived on coffee and determination, constantly worried about making payroll for myself, about finding clients, about keeping the lights on. There were nights I cried from exhaustion and fear, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. But slowly, things began to turn around. My first client was a small organic bakery that needed help with branding and marketing. I threw everything I had into their campaign, developing a comprehensive strategy that included a website redesign, social media presence, and local partnership program. Within 6 months, their revenue had increased by 40%. Word spread. Other small businesses started reaching out. I hired my first employee, then another. By the end of year 2, we had a team of 5 and a growing roster of clients. By year 3, we had moved to a larger office and had 15 employees. What set Meridian apart was that we genuinely cared about our clients' success. We took the time to understand their businesses, their challenges, their goals. We weren't just creating pretty advertisements. We were building sustainable growth strategies, and it worked. One of our breakthrough moments came when we were hired by a struggling regional restaurant chain. They had 20 locations across the Midwest, but they were losing customers to newer, trendier competitors. Their management was older, traditional, and resistant to change. I spent weeks analyzing their business, their market, their competition. Then I presented them with a bold strategy. Rebrand completely, modernize their menu while honoring their heritage, create an engaging online presence, and implement a loyalty program that rewarded community engagement, not just purchases. They were skeptical, but desperate enough to try. Within 18 months, they had not only stopped losing customers, but had opened 5 new locations. Their CEO called it the most transformative business strategy we've ever implemented. That success led to bigger clients, more recognition, and rapid growth. By the time I was 42, Meridian Strategy Group had 75 employees, offices in Chicago and Milwaukee, and annual revenue of over $15 million. We had won multiple industry awards and been recognized as one of the fastest-growing private companies in Illinois. Throughout all of this, my relationship with my father remained distant. He knew I had started a business, but he never asked about it, never showed interest. Family gatherings were awkward affairs where he would talk extensively about my brother's work at his dealerships, but change the subject whenever my career came up. My mother would call occasionally, proud but unable to bridge the gap between us. "You know how your father is," she would say apologetically. "He's from a different generation." But I had stopped waiting for his approval. I had found validation in my work, in my client's success, in the team I had built. Daniel was my biggest cheerleader, celebrating every milestone, supporting me through every challenge. My friendship with Patricia, who I still visited regularly despite her declining health, reminded me that I was doing exactly what I was meant to do. Then, one Tuesday morning in September, I received an email that would change everything. It was from a journalist at Forbes magazine. They were doing a feature on innovative entrepreneurs who were disrupting traditional industries, and they wanted to profile me and Meridian Strategy Group. I read the email 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding. Forbes wanted to interview me. Me, the daughter who didn't know business. The interview process was extensive. They spent hours talking to me about my philosophy, my strategies, my journey. They interviewed my clients, my employees, even Daniel. They analyzed our financials, our growth trajectory, our market position. 2 months later, the journalist called me. "Margot, I wanted to give you advance notice. Your profile is going to be the cover story for our February issue. Congratulations." I sat in my office, phone still pressed to my ear after she had hung up, tears streaming down my face. The cover of Forbes. It felt surreal, impossible, like a dream I didn't dare have. The issue came out on a cold February morning. There I was on the cover, photographed in our office, with the headline, "Margot Chen, Building Brands and Breaking Barriers." The article inside was 7 pages long, detailing my journey, my business philosophy, and the success of Meridian Strategy Group. My phone exploded with calls and messages. Clients, colleagues, friends, and former professors all reached out to congratulate me. LinkedIn and email were flooded with interview requests, speaking invitations, and new business inquiries. But there was one call I was waiting for, one person I wanted to hear from, even though I knew it was unlikely. And for 3 days, that call didn't come. On the 4th day, my assistant buzzed my office. "Margot, your father is here to see you." My heart started racing. I hadn't seen him in almost a year, not since the previous Thanksgiving. "Send him in," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He walked into my office, and I was struck by how much older he looked. He was 68 now, his hair completely gray, his movements slower. He was carrying a copy of Forbes with my face on the cover. "Margot," he said, his voice rough. "Can I sit down?" I nodded, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. We sat in silence for a moment, the magazine between us like a bridge or a barrier. I couldn't tell which. "I read the article," he finally said, "all of it, and I looked up your company, your revenue, your growth, your client list." He paused, his hands trembling slightly. "You've built something remarkable." "Thank you," I said carefully, not sure where this was going. "I was wrong," he said, and his voice cracked. "I was wrong about you, Margot. For your entire life, I was wrong. You knew business better than I ever gave you credit for. You had vision I couldn't see, and I was too proud, too stuck in my old ways to recognize it." He looked up at me, and I saw tears in his eyes. "I told you that you didn't know business, but the truth is, you knew it better than me. You saw the future while I was clinging to the past. My company has been struggling for years. We're barely breaking even. Meanwhile, you've built an empire." "Dad," I started, but he held up his hand. "Please, let me finish. I need to say this." He took a shaky breath. "I failed you as a father. I let my prejudices and my ego blind me to who you really were. I discouraged you when I should have encouraged you. I dismissed you when I should have listened. And I'm sorry, Margot. I'm so deeply sorry. I had imagined this moment countless times over the years, this apology I never thought I would receive. But now that it was happening, I didn't feel the vindication I expected. Instead, I felt sad. Sad for all the years we had lost, for the relationship we could have had. "Why now?" I asked quietly. "Why did it take a magazine cover for you to see me?" He flinched at the question, but he didn't look away. "Because I'm a foolish old man who needed to see it in print, in a magazine I respect, before I could accept what had been in front of me all along. That's my failure, not yours." We talked for over an hour. He asked about my business, really asked, listening to my answers with genuine interest. He asked about my strategies, my plans for growth, my philosophy on leadership. For the first time in my life, my father was treating me like an equal, like someone whose opinion mattered. Before he left, he paused at the door. "Would you consider having dinner with me? Just the two of us? I'd like to get to know the woman you've become, if you'll give me that chance." I agreed, though I wasn't sure why. Maybe because despite everything, he was still my father. Or maybe because I wanted to believe that people could change, that it was never too late to build something new from the ruins of what was broken. That dinner became a weekly tradition. At first it was awkward, stilted conversations over pasta at a quiet Italian restaurant in the Loop. But gradually, we found our rhythm. He asked about my life, about Daniel, about my work. He shared stories from his own career, including his regrets and mistakes. He told me about how his dealerships were struggling to adapt to the digital age, how he was losing market share to competitors who had embraced online sales. "I should have listened to you all those years ago," he said, "when you talked about digital marketing. You were right." I surprised myself by offering to help, not to work for him, but to advise him, to share what I had learned. We developed a digital transformation strategy for his business, bringing his dealerships into the modern era. It was slow work and not always successful, but we were doing it together. My mother cried when she saw us working together. "I never thought I'd see this day," she told me, hugging me tightly. The Forbes article brought opportunities I never imagined. I was invited to speak at conferences, to join boards of directors, to mentor young entrepreneurs. Meridian Strategy Group doubled in size over the next year, expanding to offices in 3 more cities. But the most meaningful change was in my relationship with my father. It wasn't perfect. We still had disagreements, moments where old patterns tried to reassert themselves, but we were building something real, something honest. One evening, about 8 months after that first dinner, he gave me a gift. It was a framed copy of my Forbes cover, but he had written something on the matting. "To Margot, who always knew business better than her old fool of a father, I'm proud of you. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. Love, Dad." I hung it in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that success isn't just about revenue or recognition. It's about staying true to yourself, even when the people you love most can't see your value. It's about building something meaningful, not to prove others wrong, but to prove yourself right. Looking back now, at 47, I realized that my father's doubt was never really about me. It was about his own limitations, his own fears, his own inability to imagine a world different from the one he knew. His words hurt me deeply, shaped me in ways both painful and powerful, but they didn't define me. I defined myself through hard work, through vision, through refusing to accept that I didn't belong in a world that told me I was an outsider. I built Meridian Strategy Group not despite my father's words, but in spite of them. And in the end, that made all the difference. My relationship with my father today is something I never thought possible. We talk several times a week. He asks my advice on business decisions. He brags about me to his friends, showing them the Forbes article until the pages are worn. He's trying, really trying, to be the father he should have been from the start. And I've learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past. It's about choosing what you carry forward. I carry forward the lessons I learned from being underestimated. Resilience, determination, empathy for others who are dismissed. But I'm leaving behind the hurt, the anger, the need for external validation. Because I know business. I always did. And now, finally, so does everyone else.